Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful, beautiful Friday afternoon. And we got a lot of basketball that we are going to be talking about, and it's going to be a little bit focused on the draft, a little bit focused on some news that's going on, around the world of basketball. So, first off, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about LeBron James and his son. Bronny recently was selected by the Los Angeles Lakers as the 55th pick in the draft. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that in the first segment. Then in the second segment, we have something that just came up 20 minutes ago. The Warriors are refusing to allow Andrew Wiggins to play in the Olympics because they're afraid of him getting injured. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the second segment. Then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about the Miami Heat and how Jimmy Butler, there's an NBA insider that's claiming that Jimmy will not sign with the Miami Heat once his contract is expired, and he will go ahead and test the free agency market. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. And then in the fourth segment, I'm going to talk about all the basketball news that's going on, because there's so many things that's going on that I feel like everyone should know about. Like, for example, Emmanuel quickly signing an extension with the Raptors, KCP declining his player option, some trades that were going down, and as well as what a former NBA player had to say about his time overseas with the Shanghai Sharks. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the fourth segment. We also have a very, very, very special fifth segment where I talk about one of my former classmates, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Before I begin, however, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead, use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and go into the first segment of the podcast, which is going to be all about LeBron James and his son, Bronny. And he's the number one. He was not. I was gonna say not the number one pick. He's getting more attention than the number one pick in the entirety of the draft. That's for sure. I mean, This is arguably the first time I think that a second round pick in the NBA draft is getting talked about so much, even more so than the first round of the draft. And it's really. I mean, I wouldn't really say it's that shocking, because it is LeBron James's child. Anything with LeBron in front of it, and anything that has anything to do with LeBron, immediately makes headlines, no matter whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's in between. Anything that's LeBron is going to be talked about. And it's really, yesterday I really didn't want to believe that Bronny was going to get drafted solely because of his father. And his father being on the Lakers, and his father wanting to play with his son for the longest time. I did not think that was I didn't think that was going to happen. I was a little bit naive. I will admit, I should have seen this coming, that he was going to be selected by the Lakers. I really should have seen it coming, and I shouldn't have said those things about that. But regardless, those things that I said in the previous podcast, the point still stands, in the sense that him as a point guard, it's not very ideal for many other teams. A 6'1" guard that doesn't really provide the scoring option and is probably going to be a liability on defense. I don't really agree. I don't like it. I don't like the move. As much as I am a fan of LeBron James and his son as well, I'm just not a big fan of this move. But to be fair, this draft is known as being one of the weaker draft picks in recent NBA history. This draft as a whole, this draft class is known to be, or considered, very, very weak. And so this is partly this is a lot of people speculate that this was the reason why Bronny decided to declare for the draft now and not try to wait and develop his game in college, because of how weak the draft this year actually was, which honestly, like when I think of it that way, that is a very, very smart move, because he's not wrong. The draft is relatively weak, and quite frankly, I have no idea who the Lakers would have chosen if not for Bronny being in the second round. In the second round, I have no idea who the Lakers would have chosen, and I don't think the Lakers really know who they were going to pick if it wasn't going to be Bronny. So I was blinded by, I didn't think that that was actually going to happen, but it makes total sense that he's on the Lakers playing with his dad, playing with it might be a little bit odd, like it might be a little bit weird in the locker room, and it might be a little bit but it's honestly like it's a great story. It is a great story. This is the first father-son duo that the NBA has ever seen. And this is also this father-son duo leads the NBA in total points scored by a father-son duo, and leads the NBA in total points. I mean, they are just the best duo that has ever existed. But all jokes aside, obviously he's going to be like on everyone's radar. He's going to be everywhere. Like, everyone's going to talk about him. Everyone is going to see his every move. Everyone's going to look at his mistakes. All eyes are going to be on him, especially playing in Los Angeles, where all eyes are already on you. A little bit of a Tupac reference right there, but all eyes are going to be on him on the Lakers, and any athlete that joins the Lakers is going to have eyes on them 24/7, 365. So really, was this a good idea, drafting someone who, all that pressure? Is he really going to be able to withstand all that pressure? Only time will tell. So I'm very, very skeptical of this. Like, I mean, this could be a risk. This could be like, a good move, or this could cripple the team for a while, because let's face it, a small guard like him that isn't providing on the offensive side of the ball, like, that's really going to be the first step of his game. He needs to provide on the offensive side of the ball. And if he doesn't, then, this is going to prove to be a really, really bad pick. Now, what would be really hilarious is if he gets traded. Like, that would be so, so funny, because the internet is just going to be like, oh my gosh, LeBron traded his son. Oh, LeBron traded Bronny. Wow, he was this, that, and the other. You know how the internet acts. But really, I'm really skeptical on this move. But I'm not going to sit here and say that he isn't talented, because that's one thing that a lot of people are going to say about Bronny that I just genuinely don't agree with. Like, it's the same thing with Austin Rivers, how everyone is going to say, oh, he's only in the NBA because of his dad, this, that, and the other. That might be a little bit true. That might be true. There might be some truth in that. But at the end of the day, they wouldn't be in the NBA if they didn't have talent. And if they were the same average Joe, like let's say me, for example, or anyone else that was walking on the street, they, regardless of who their father is, they wouldn't get picked for the draft. They would not get, like, Ghost of someone in the chat says a little bit true. I mean, yeah, I say a little bit true just because, like, all these athletes that come from college, and all of these athletes, they put so much time, they put so much effort, they put so much grind in their game, that they are clearly better than any average person. Like, they're clearly better than you or me, and they wouldn't get picked if they were like you and me in terms of basketball skills. So it's like, he still has basketball skill in his repertoire. It's not like he can't play basketball. And you're not going to get drafted, regardless of your father, if you can't play basketball. But the fact that he can play basketball, like, much better than me, and much better than you, much better than anyone watching this video, much better than anyone criticizing him, that's why he was picked. So it's like, you got to give credit where credit is due. And his hard work is going to be, yes, I understand nepotism is a common thing in the basketball world, but it's like, you need the skills, and he clearly has the skills of being a talent. Like, he wouldn't he wouldn't have gotten picked if he wasn't talented. That's really all that I'm saying. And saying that he was only drafted because of his father, I think is just degrading. I think it's degrading. Austin Rivers, Thanasis, Bronny, come on, man. Nepotism is common in basketball. We do not need to overstate their skills. He's mid, according to Ghost of Jerulatis. Forgive me if I messed up that name. Sure, you in your opinion, sure, he's better than you. He's much better than me. He's better than anyone watching this right now. So you can't really say that. Like, we as a flock of people, we can't say that about Bronny. I just think that's incredibly disrespectful to all the time and the effort that he puts into the game. And the fact that, not to mention, he also suffered from cardiac arrest at one point, and that also could play a part into his style of play. Maybe if he didn't suffer from that, maybe he would have actually been a lot better in college, and maybe that's something would Ghost of Jerulatis in the chat says Bronny wouldn't get a single point off me in tennis. That's a completely different sport. That's a completely different sport. Like, why are we even talking about that? Why are we talking about tennis? Completely different sport, completely different scenario. I think that's just flat out disrespectful. Saying that he's mid, saying all of these things. I think that's just plain disrespectful, because like it just degrades everything that he's done to get to this point in the draft. And who cares about what he does in tennis? Like, I'm going to be honest. Who cares about what he does in tennis? We only care about his basketball skills. So that's really all that I have for this first segment. I'm not saying that he is, like, a huge prospect like Victor Wembanyama. But I'm also not going to sit here and say that he doesn't have talent. That's just not me. I don't like disrespecting players like that. It's just not fair. So with that, we are out of time for this first segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the second segment, where I talk a little bit about Andrew Wiggins and how the Warriors don't want him playing in the Olympics. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about Andrew Wiggins and the Golden State Warriors and their situation. So, before I begin with this segment, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and go into the second segment. Actually, before I go into the second segment, I'm going to acknowledge Ghost's comments yet again. He's clearly not a Bronny fan. Clearly he's not. Because he says, tennis is harder. Saying Bronny is mid in the inferior sport of basketball is me being generous. Oh, watch out, guys. He's being generous. Bronny gonna look good on the bench. I mean, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that tennis is a much more difficult sport than basketball. Do you guys think basketball is a much more difficult sport than tennis? And, to respond to your comments, I don't think he cares. And to be honest, I don't really care about whether or not Bronny's going to be good at tennis or not either. I really don't. And it genuinely, like, I just don't. I'm sorry, I really don't. And it's, what does that matter? What does that matter? What good does that do? And sure, he might look good coming off the bench. You never know what his role on the Lakers is going to be. And we have no idea how well he can, progress in the future, because playing with all of these, and training under the NBA trainers, a lot of players like that didn't, let's say for example, players that couldn't shoot, players that couldn't do this, players that couldn't do that, they all developed that game in the NBA. So like Lonzo Ball, I remember when he was on UCLA, a lot of people were criticizing his jump shot. And, while it was working on UCLA, going into the NBA, it didn't translate that well. But when he was training under those NBA trainers and, jump shooting and practicing his jump shot, he refined his jump shot. And he ultimately became a three-point shooter. He went from shooting like 32% from three to shooting like 40+% from three, which is fantastic. It is a huge jump. So saying that, he's going to be mid, or saying that he's going to be this, that, and the other, I think that's just unfair. But that's just me. So with that out of the way, we can go into the actual second segment, which is talking a little bit about Andrew Wiggins and the situation that the Warriors are forcing him to. So what's happening? So Andrew Wiggins, the Golden State Warriors are looking to trade him. I'm willing to bet that he is going to be in the same trade package as Paul George if the Warriors decide to trade for Paul George, because there were rumors and there were reports saying that the Warriors, they're ready to deal with trades, and they're ready to trade or sign Paul George to the Golden State Warriors. So whether it be a sign and trade, whether it be something else that they plan on doing, they do intend on getting Paul George. And I feel like Andrew Wiggins is going to be a very key piece in that trade. And the reason why I believe that is because the Warriors, they are extremely reluctant on letting Andrew Wiggins play in the Olympics for Team Canada. They don't want him playing in the Olympics because they are afraid of the possibility that Andrew Wiggins gets injured. And if he gets injured, then teams aren't going to be willing to trade for him. Now, while I do understand the Warriors' standpoint, and I completely understand why they wouldn't want to risk Andrew Wiggins getting injured, and why they wouldn't want to, let him play in the Olympics, I think that's just wrong. Like, from a fan perspective, I genuinely just think that's wrong. Like, you can't deny someone's right to play for their country and represent their country in the Olympics. Now, a lot of people might not agree with that anymore, but I remember back then, it was a huge honor to represent your country as, and it probably, a lot of people probably still think that it is, but I feel like I see that less and less, looking into a lot of these athletes, like, for example, Joel Embiid. I don't know why, like, he decided to play for Team USA instead of playing for the French national team. He is French. He was from there. He actually had an agreement to play with France. But in my personal opinion, I would have played for France just to represent the country where I was from instead of just hopping on the United States bandwagon. But that's just me, and I feel like, there's really like a level of, respect and a level of pride of representing your country. And denying somebody that opportunity is just unfair, especially since, the Olympics, they happen every 4 years. There's no telling what Andrew Wiggins' career is, what's going to happen in Andrew Wiggins' career in 4 years. Because what if he actually does get injured within the 4 years and he can't play basketball anymore? And this was the one time when he could have played for an Olympic team, but the Warriors as an organization said no. I think that's incredibly unfair. We have a comment coming in from Logical Raptors Fanatic. Wiggins might not even start. Golden State Warriors is worrying for nothing, in my opinion. And, Sure, yeah, like we have no idea whether or not Andrew Wiggins is going to start, but regardless whether he starts or if he doesn't, he's still going to get plenty of minutes. And it doesn't matter whether you come off the bench, it doesn't matter whether you're a starter, it doesn't matter whether you are a six-man, whatever position, you could get injured at any point. You could even get injured like just working out. I remember when I was in high school, a football teammate of mine, he got injured while he was lifting weights. Like, he tore his ACL while he was lifting weights. And, like, anything can happen. So, it's a precaution that I understand, like, from an organization standpoint, I understand the precaution. But, as a basketball fan and, like, as a human being, I just think that's wrong. I really don't think that it's a really bad look for the organization denying Andrew Wiggins the right to represent his country in the Olympics. It is a huge honor, and it's like sometimes some of these players, they don't even get selected to be on the team. So I just think it's incredibly weak by the Golden State Warriors, but I do understand that they want to be sure to get ready for the Paul George trade if that does happen. So from an organization standpoint, I totally get it. But I don't think you need to, because you're essentially like living in fear. And sure, there's a chance that he gets injured, but what if he doesn't get injured? And Raptors fanatic in the chat, he says, Warriors has had a dream to be, Wiggins has had a dream to be an Olympian like his mother. Exactly. And now they're just, now they're taking, I actually did not know that. Thank you for telling me that. But he, like, if he does have a dream to play with Raptors fan says that she was an Olympic sprinter. That's awesome. So yeah, like, why wouldn't you want to represent your country like that? I think it's just not fair to any athlete and that wants to participate in the Olympics. Like, if an athlete wants to participate in the Olympics, I don't think any organization should have the right to say no, they're not allowed to play. I think it should be up to the player and up to the player alone. And I just think that's incredibly weak, because you cannot live in the fear that your players are going to get injured. Honestly, I feel like that's why a lot of the players, they get injured already, because we're treating them and we're like trying to cater to them and making them frail, this, that, and the other. I mean, back in the day, players used to play 82 games. Now they're like barely playing. There's like barely any athlete in the league that's playing 82 games. The only one that comes to mind is Mikal Bridges, that's playing 82 games a season. And like, again, to be quite frank, I really don't like how, all of these organizations, they're like, oh, don't play because you could get injured. Oh, don't play because we're afraid you might get injured. Let the man play. Like, if he wants to play, let him play. It's really weak, in my opinion. And I think it just trains these athletes over time to be weak. But that's just me. That is just my opinion. So I'm not trying to say that athletes are weak. I'm not saying that they're weak by any means, but I think that this training strategy and, this strat of like just conserving the players so they don't get injured is weak, because, you're just training them to just protect themselves when instead of just hooping, like, just hoop. You have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea if you're even going to end injured. Just hoop. So that's all I have for the second segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the third segment, where an NBA insider claims that Jimmy Butler isn't going to re-sign with the Miami Heat. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the third segment, because there were rumors that Jimmy Butler will get traded. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about that after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm going to be talking about the Miami Heat as well as Jimmy Butler and the situation that's going on over there in Miami, because it's not looking pretty. If you're a Miami Heat fan, it's not looking good for you, because I know Miami Heat fans, they all love Jimmy Butler. They all love Jimmy Butler in the postseason for whatever reason. I personally think playoff Jimmy is slightly overrated, just a little bit, because they just put him on this pedestal every single time in the postseason, and I don't understand why. It's just me though, but there is a lot of tension brewing between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, and I honestly think that this tension has started since Jimmy Butler posted that video when he said, If I was playing in the series against the Boston Celtics, we would have won. If I was playing against the this yada yada yada, you know what I'm saying. Like, he was gloating on the internet. He was trolling, I guess you could say. And Pat Riley, he didn't like the type of attitude that Jimmy was displaying. In fact, he even said, like, just if you're not on the court, if you're not playing, then just don't talk. And those were Pat Riley's opinions on Jimmy Butler's actions, and I believe that ever since then, there's been a little bit of a tension between Jimmy and the rest of the organization, because, let's face it, I don't like that action either. I genuinely don't like what Jimmy had to say, because there is no telling how the team would have played in the postseason if Jimmy was on the team. There is no telling whether or not the Miami Heat were going to win. He is just gloating. He is just talking, and it's not a good look. It's an unprofessional, and it's not a good look for any player, for any organization. And Pat Riley, he notices that. I mean, like, if you're not on Pat Riley's side and if you're on Jimmy's side, I don't know what to say to you aside from you're not a real basketball fan, because Pat Riley, he has so many rings. Like, he knows what he's talking about. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And if you're siding with Jimmy, the guy that hasn't won a single championship ring, I don't know what to say to you. But that's just me, though. You guys can side with whoever you want. Let me know in the comments, who do you agree with? Do you agree with Pat Riley and, making those comments, if you're not playing, don't talk? Or are you on the side of Jimmy, where you can chat even though you're not playing in the entire postseason? But aside from that, there is a lot of tension brewing between the Miami Heat and the star player, according to Shams, an NBA insider. He gets a lot of insider news, and a recent report indicates that that Jimmy Butler is considering exploring free agency in 2025, potentially ending his tenure with the Miami Heat. Now, there was also a report saying that Jimmy Butler, I believe it was maybe 2 weeks ago, or over 3 weeks ago, I completely forget, but I do have a section of that on my podcast, so if you guys are interested in listening into that report a little bit more in depth, go ahead and check that out on the basketball playlist. But there were reports, and there was an insider that said Jimmy will get traded. Like, it was, without a doubt, he's definitely going to get traded. So, according to NBA insider Shams, Butler intends to play out the upcoming season under his current contract with Miami, but has no plans to sign an extension before hitting free agency. This is what Shams was told, and this is what these are the updates that he gave us. So this is the quote: Jimmy Butler, he's going to play out next season under his current contract with the Heat. I'm told Jimmy will not be signing an extension with the Heat or any other team ahead of his opt-out in 2025 free agency. This is what Shams reported. And Shams is known for his accurate reports, previously broke the news of the LA Lakers' interest in JJ Redick for their head coaching position, which eventually materialized. Given his track record, the Butler report carries significant weight, and suggests that the Heat star's departure is a real possibility. Now, this is like, obviously I'm reading this coming in from an article. If Butler opts out of his 2025 and of his 2025 player option, the 2023-2024 season could be the last time Heat fans are going to witness the dominance that he displays on the court. Last season, he averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists in 60 games, showcasing his all-around talent and leadership. Now, Brian Windhorst suggests Jimmy Butler's commitment to Heat amid free agency buzz. Jimmy has been a cornerstone for the Heat despite not playing more than 64 games in a single season since joining the team. Butler recently digested a hot take from Derek White's father, led the Heat to the conference finals in 2 of the past 3 seasons. Sham's report was surprising, and during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, Windhorst suggested that Butler plans to stay with the Heat despite ongoing trade rumors. So maybe, those trades and maybe the thought that Jimmy Butler will get traded is just smoke and mirrors. So, but this is the quote that we have. From what I understand, Jimmy Butler is going to plan to be back with the Miami Heat next year, and even if there's no extension, he's going to focus on next season. So, yeah, that seems to be the little situation going around with Jimmy Butler. And obviously, I chose this emo pick because, it seems like everything is going out of balance with Miami. And let me know in the comments if you guys are Miami fans, if you guys aren't Miami fans. I mean, Bam Adebayo, he recently signed an extension, so it seems like if Jimmy Butler isn't going to be the number 1 option on the team for after this next upcoming season, then Bam is really going to be the leader of the team and the star option. But Jimmy, he's been known to really want out of certain teams in certain situations, and he's been a part of so many different organizations over the last few years. So before he was on the Miami Heat, he was on the 76ers for 1 year, and he was this close to making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and arguably really close to winning the NBA Finals because they lost to the eventual champion Toronto Raptors. This was all the way back in 2019 when Kawhi Leonard, he hit that game-winning shot that bounced on the rim 4 times. That was just unlucky. And then after that, he decided to go to the Miami Heat. But even before that, he was on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he was arguably, the best player on the Timberwolves. And, it's kind of now the Timberwolves, they're a really good team, but when Jimmy was on the team, that was the first time that the Timberwolves were actually legitimately good. But they ultimately ended up trading him because Jimmy wasn't happy with his teammates, wasn't happy with the situation that he was in. He was incredibly, he was honestly, like, when he was on the Timberwolves, he was a little bit full of himself. I mean, there are quotes from him on the Timberwolves saying, "You effing need me." And obviously, there was that legendary moment where he took the entire 3rd string and beat the starting lineup. Like, that is incredible. Taking the 3rd string and beating the starting lineup with the 3rd string. That's obviously pathetic if you were part of the starting lineup. But as Jimmy Butler, that sort of gives him, like, that swagger and that respect that a lot of fans give him. Like, dog. Whenever you see Jimmy Butler, everyone thinks dog. That's essentially what that did for him. And that ultimately forced his way out of being traded, apart from, his little his attitude. That's one thing that I genuinely didn't like about Jimmy Butler when he was on the Timberwolves. Like his attitude and, him desperately wanting to get traded. Like he was just talking all the smack about the organization and just being, I don't know, like, in my opinion, a little bit immature. And obviously, that's how a lot of these players are supposed to force their way out of situations that they don't like. But I really feel like there's, like, much more professional, a better way of taking that action as opposed to just, complaining 24/7. That is just me, and that is just what I saw, however. Ultimately, it ended up working out for him, so I guess I can't really say much, but yeah. that's a little bit of and obviously before the Timberwolves, there was his time on Chicago when he was with Derrick Rose, and he was a very good player on Chicago as well, and a great perimeter defender. Still is a great perimeter defender, honestly. But yeah, those are my overall opinions on Jimmy Butler and the situation around him, as well as like his past and the reason why his attitude and his cockiness is all the way up here when I don't think it should be all the way up there. But that's just me, however. So with that out of the way, that is going to be the end of the third segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I talk about all of the basketball news that's going on. Now this is going to range from trades, contract negotiations, as well as just overall news that around the world of basketball. So it's going to be an accumulation of a lot of things, because I genuinely don't think I can talk about each specific one in just one segment, but I also don't think that I can't leave every single one of them out. So I'm going to crumple all of that up into one segment and talk about all of the things that are going on in the basketball world. So I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to just give a quick update on all of the basketball news, as well as free agent signings and trades, everything else of that nature. And it's going to be a lot of things. I can't just specifically talk about one, because there is so many things that are going on in the world of basketball right now that I just think they should be worth mentioning, and I can't cover all of them in just I can't cover any specific one in one segment. I feel like and especially since I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break. I'm not really a break, but the weekend, that's the time when I don't post anything on the basketball podcast. So I feel like this is just enough news and enough information to keep you guys informed while the weekend is going on. So first, we're going to start with the Dallas Mavericks. I mentioned before in a previous podcast that the Mavericks are interested in, or they plan on trading Tim Hardaway Jr. to a different team, and that ultimately ended up happening. So now he's no longer a Dallas Maverick. He played horribly in the postseason, absolutely horribly in the postseason. And honestly, there was a graphic that I saw that he didn't score a single point from May all the way up until, I believe, Game 4 of the NBA Finals. That is really, really bad. And obviously, being so bad and being so unhelpful for the organization, and just costing them a roster spot, they wanted to make a deal with him. They wanted to trade him. So I'm just going to read all of the trade details. I'm going to try to pull them all up. And hold on just one second. And so he got traded to the Detroit Pistons, and so he's moving to the Motor City, and it's a cap saving move that the Mavericks ended up doing. Dallas is sending 3 second-round picks along with, Tim Hardaway Jr. to Detroit in exchange for Quentin Grimes. And honestly, I think this is a great move coming in from the Dallas Mavericks. Honestly, this is a great move. The Mavs, they now have a lock in a playoff rotation guy. They now have a guy that's going to play in the playoffs a lot and be a part of the rotation, which I think puts them in at a surefire 7 under contract, Luka, Kyrie, PJ, Gafford, Lively, Josh Green, and Grimes. Those guys are going to be the players mainly in the rotation. They should also be set to re-sign. They should also be set to re-sign some of their other players as well. DJJ is going to be one of those players that they plan on re-signing, so that way they could have a full 8. Now, for Detroit's side of this trade, the 3 second-rounders, they feel right for them, for what they're like, the contract that Grimes is on. Obviously, Grimes is on an expiring contract, and for what it's worth, they're also trying to rebuild, so this definitely helps them in the rebuilding category. However, under the assumption that he wouldn't want to stay in Detroit long term, I think this is a great pickup for the Dallas Mavericks. And maybe Talon Horton, THJ's expiring contract can be beneficial in another trade. We'll figure that out. We'll see how it goes. I'd imagine that's not going to be true, but that's basically one of the big trades that's going on in the league. That's one of the newses. So next we have a free agent signing. So Emmanuel Quickley, he obviously, former Knicks, and he is signing a contract with the Raptors that is worth $175 million. And now the Raptors have both pieces of their return under contract for at least the next 3 years. Emmanuel Quickley, 5 years, $175 million, according to ESPN. RJ Barrett, hold on, let me just close all these ads. RJ Barrett, the other player sent to the Raptors in exchange for OG Anunoby, is already under contract for the next 3 seasons, and the Knicks and Raptors trade seemingly has become a win-win for both organizations, finding the better fits for their rosters and having their new assets under contract in the foreseeable future. I'm reading this from an article, by the way, and obviously Toronto's in a rebuild. And it seems like Emmanuel Quickley is going to be part of that rebuild, and he has talent. Like, I'm not going to say that he doesn't have talent. I watched him when he was on the Knicks. A lot of people were very distraught when he got traded, because he was a phenomenal scorer, and he was a very good piece to the team. So, but obviously Toronto's in a rebuild, and it would be tough to retain Anunoby in free agency, and he represented a luxury rather than a necessity on the team in transition. His injury history also hurt the team, lacking star players, so the Raptors decided to send him to the Knicks for the 2 starters, RJ Barrett and Quickley. Plus, obviously, Quickley, he would become an unrestricted free agent without a new deal. This is obviously the result of that. Quickley was the 6th Man of the Year award winner in 2023. He averaged 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in a starting role spanning his 38 games with the Raptors. He averaged just 12 points per game with the Knicks, albeit in 24 minutes compared to 33 minutes. So they have value. Like, the Raptors, they find the value in getting Emmanuel Quickley. And even as, like, those two, like, and RJ Barrett as well, those two, they're shining on the Raptors. They're great pieces to the team, despite the fact that the Raptors finished 12th in the Eastern Conference with a 25-57 record. I mean, depending on how well these guys can play, and with Scotty Barnes being the number 1 option, maybe the Raptors, they could make something of themselves in this season. Maybe they'll make a play-in appearance. Maybe they'll make it to the playoffs. I honestly don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs. The play-in tournament seems a little bit more feasible and plausible for the Toronto Raptors. And as Toronto has done well in trade, the Knicks are pleased with their end of the deal as well. So that's just, the news around the league right now and around the free agent signing. And there's also some more news about the hold on just one second. I'm just pulling up the player right now, about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So obviously he is a player for the Denver Nuggets, and he is declining his player option for the Nuggets, and he's going to become a free agent this summer. So not entirely sure how this is going to play out for the Denver Nuggets. This could play out the same way that it played out for the Knicks with OG Anunoby, and how he declined the player option, but they re-signed him with giving him a huge contract with an insane amount of money tied to it. And I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be the approach for the Denver Nuggets, but I do think that KCP is a very vital piece to this team. Now, he signed a contract, a 2-year contract, $30 million, which included $30 million guaranteed and an average salary of $15 million. Now, he plans to waive his $15 million player option to test the free agency market. That's the report on KCP. I think he's a very important player for the Denver Nuggets. I genuinely think that they need to re-sign him. He's a great shooter and obviously a very important piece to them winning the championship. In the regular season with the Denver Nuggets last year, he averaged 10 points per game and was shooting, was shooting 40% from the three-point line as well as 46% from the field. So fantastic player overall, and as well, even and in the playoffs, he was shooting 88. He averaged 8 points, and shot 100% from the free throw line, as well as shooting 32% from three and 39% from the field. So his play in the playoffs did decline a little bit, but I still think he adds tremendous value to the team, despite the fact that his playoff performance just, sort of wasn't the same and kind of tanked in the playoffs. But that's basically like all the free agent signings and all of that stuff that went down in the NBA right now. But there is some big news in basketball that I just I really want to talk about a little bit because I find it very, very interesting. But a former first round pick makes allegations that the Shanghai Sharks are the worst organization that he's ever had to play for. So the player that I'm talking about is Noah Vonleh. You probably don't know who he is, but he used to play for the Knicks. He was a forward, and he recently he was playing overseas with the Shanghai Sharks in China's basketball league, and his experience in China, much like his NBA career, ended abruptly and on a sour note. So he alleges, this is all alleging, he alleges that the Shanghai Sharks are refusing to pay him his money that is due, and he's also alleging that the Shanghai Sharks used weapons to break into his hotel room and threaten him. Allegedly, that's what the Shanghai Sharks did. And he posted all of this on his Instagram story saying, quote, SMH, it was a crazy year playing in China. Shanghai Sharks, by far, worst organization I've ever been a part of. Very unprofessional. They still owe me my playoff bonus from the 2021-22 season. They also still owe me the remaining balance of my salary for the 2023-24 season, he wrote in his first Instagram post. This is all that was all quoted by him. And his he also said, I was dealing with injury during the season and it was taking longer than expected for me to return. The Sharks tried to rush me back many times and told team doctors and doctors outside of the team to lie to me and tell me I'm okay to play. I sent my MRI results to doctors in the States and they had different opinions and confirmed I wasn't ready to return to play, he shared on Instagram. This is all the things that he is saying on his Instagram. This isn't me. Because the injury was taking too long, the Sharks were trying to find ways to terminate my contract on a fully guaranteed deal. They wrongfully terminated the contract on February 26, 2024, he continued. And let's see, more on this quote. I get back to the hotel after attending one of the games. Now the general manager wants to have my room canceled. The general manager tells the hotel to send people to my room to force me out of there. There's 6 people coming in my room trying to break in and grab me out of the room. This is all what Vonleh wrote on his IG. This is not me saying that that's what the Shanghai Sharks are doing. This is all him. This is alleged information. This is him. So And he also put on Instagram, weapon they used to break into my room while I was asleep. Snatched it from them through the peephole SMH. This is everything that he wrote. So, little bit of if this allegation is true, that's a little bit cuckoo in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to touch on that a little bit. I just wanted to, bring that up because I thought that was very, very interesting how allegedly that's what the Shanghai Sharks were doing to him, and that is allegedly how they treat their players. Again, allegedly. So, with that out of the way, we are going to go right ahead into the fifth segment, which is going to be my favorite segment because a former classmate of mine, Mark Armstrong, recently signed with the Brooklyn Nets. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the fifth segment. It's going to be shorter than a lot of the other segments, but I really want to talk about this because this was my classmate. We were in the same graduating class. We were also in I believe we were in the same music class. Yeah, I believe it or not, he took music. It was an elective that he had to take that year. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about that right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth and final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we are going to be talking about my former classmate, Mark Armstrong, and how he was recently signed as an undrafted free agent to the Brooklyn Nets, my favorite team, and the team that I follow religiously 24/7. Even though, I am a New York fan, I do like the Knicks. It is a little bit weird, I understand that, but that's how my family was raised. And not only that, the Nets, they were New Jersey at one time, and most of the time, you can't have two good New York teams. So it's usually between one or the other. And usually when the postseason comes around, depending on there's a fly going around on my left. Depending on what team makes the postseason, if the Nets make the postseason, I'm rooting for the Nets all the way. But if the Nets don't make the postseason and the Knicks make the postseason, I'm going to root for the Knicks because, they're like 4.3 miles away from me. So aside from that, let's focus on the talent that is Mark Armstrong. He was my former classmate. We graduated in the same class, and now he is living his dream of being an NBA athlete, and albeit on my favorite team, the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Brooklyn Nets, they are in a rebuild, so it makes total sense why they would want to sign somebody like him. He is a fantastic athlete. I'll just go through his career so far and what he's done as a player. So he was the first time that I actually met him was in a basketball camp, because while I wasn't really, I'm not going to say that I was the best basketball player because I genuinely wasn't, but I went to a camp because I wanted to have fun and I wanted to play basketball because I like having fun and I like playing the sport. And he was there. He was at that basketball camp. He was different. He was a hooper. He knew how to play. He was ridiculous. He was so freaky. He was athletic. He was fast. He had a handle. He had a shot. He had everything that you could possibly ask for in a guard. And the only thing that is really lacking for him, in my opinion, is his height when compared to the rest of the NBA the rest of the NBA talents. He's only 6'2", but I think his talent more than makes up for it. And he can dunk at that height. He has bunnies. He has the jumps. Now, over his career, like in high school, he was named the 2022 Hudson County Interscholastic Player of the Year. He also set a program record with for scoring the most points in the program. And I also want to point out, he scored the most points in our program while also playing in a COVID year. So he was playing significantly less games than you would usually play due to that COVID year. And he still broke the program record for total points. He scored 1,776 career points in high school. He averaged 23.4 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 2.8 assists per game as a senior in 2021-2022. And he played in 92 career games over the course of the 4 seasons and was listed at number 61 in ESPN's Top 100 class of 2022. And another thing about his career that I genuinely don't think should go unrecognized is the fact that he was a part of the United States under-18 team, and he even won a gold medal for that team. He averaged 10 points per game while he was on the under-18 team, shot 45% from the field, 45% from 3. Let me look at the rest of the stats. Averaged 3.7 rebounds and 3.8 assists, as well as 1.8 steals and a box plus minus of plus 27. And obviously, that is astonishing coming in from a player like him. And he's obviously, like, he's like that. Like, he is genuinely like that. He is a phenomenal athlete. He also played in his college career, he played for the Villanova Wildcats. And just an overview of his career with the Villanova Wildcats, he found himself in the starting lineup as a sophomore in 2023-2024. He started 39 times in 68 appearances for the Wildcats over the last 2 seasons, averaging 6.8 points and 2 rebounds per game. Now, let me just go ahead and look at the rest of these stats. And in overall, like, as a, like, you know, you might not see him as like, when you just look at his stats, he's not like on paper, you wouldn't really call him, you know, a huge draft prospect, but I genuinely think that he has the talent to develop into a very elite guard. And the only real, I genuinely don't want to, like, talk down on Armstrong's game, because he would absolutely kick me to the curb in a 1v1. Like, he is just that good. And how do I put this? One thing that I think that, you know, he needs to work on, and scouts also, like, picked up on this, is his playmaking. For being a guard, and he only averages like 3 assists. I feel like with the attention that he's going to demand, because, like, while he is relatively short, he is 6'2", he is fantastic at finishing around the rim. And with the attention that he's going to draw, constantly driving to the basket, that's going to open up a lot of things, like a lot of facets in his game. And that should, like, you know, enable him to make, you know, the right passes at the right time, and pass to his open teammates, which is most likely that's most likely what's going to happen because of all the attention he's going to attract driving to the basket. And once he works on his playmaking, he can really be that point guard that NBA teams want. And that's really, like, what I think, like, you know, his game is going to become. Like, he has the opportunity of being, like, a Westbrook caliber player. Like, one of those guys that is an elite finisher around the rim and can handle the ball phenomenally, as well as play make as well. And that's really what I think his game is going to be. So that's just really all that I had to say. Congratulations on Mark for making it to the NBA and finally, you know, living his dream of being an NBA athlete. It took him a long road. It took him a long way to get there, but he finally did it, and I'm so happy for him. Thank the Lord that he got to the NBA. I was watching the second round of the draft, and I was just waiting for his name to be called by whichever team is willing to pick him up. And thankfully, he did sign a contract, and it's an undrafted free agent contract with the Brooklyn Nets. So we'll see how many minutes he gets when he's on the big stage in the NBA. But I really hope that he plays phenomenally. And congratulations to him. Cannot give him any more props. So that is all that I really have to say on this fifth segment. And that is it for the show. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. It helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all that I have for today on this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and have a wonderful weekend, guys. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.